The last step of our journey is the mystic, the search for the final oneness with life, for the emotional absolute. Where letter 9 was looking for a rational absolute, you could still put it into words, you could still talk about it, and call it a philosophy, or a metaphysics, or a religion, or a science. With letter 12, you're beyond words, unless it's poetry or music. The search for infinite love and beauty. Final healing of everything, the putting everything together, ending all separations. Aquarius is still arm's length, separate. Air is separate, arm's length, air between. But water swallows and is absorbed. Water is where there's no separation. It permeates, it flows in. So this is the collective unconscious, if you will, where we are truly in touch with the universe and with the infinite. And yet it's our own personal unconscious that puts us in touch with that collective. It's psychic, like all water, sensitive, vulnerable. Water is, I think, probably the most difficult of the elements, except perhaps for letter 10, where we run up against the rules, because it is vulnerable. Through the unconscious, we are open to everything in the world. We have to learn to shut psychic doors as well as open them. We have to learn to center in ourselves and not be engulfed by other people's negative emotions. In a sense, this is why so many teachers have said become spiritual first before you concentrate on trying to become psychic. Because really being open is just like turning on a radio set, which then is open to receive something from the universe. And what you receive depends on where you're tuned in. If you're tuned into spiritual principles, to love and harmony and peace, there's no problem. That's what you get in from the universe. You can only come in what you have inside. If, on the other hand, you still haven't learned to handle the hate, the fear, the guilt, the frustration, the anger, then when you open up psychically, you get more of that in. Whatever's inside, you get more. And that can be a drag. So clean up inside first, and then we can safely open to the universe. But the essence of letter 12 is that final oneness, and with it you have three major forms. You have the artist who creates beauty, and I think letter 12 is always prominent in the really great artists, whether it's Neptune or Pisces or the 12th house. The really superior artists always have an emphasis on letter 12, because they're looking beyond the here and now pleasure of Venus, which is the other artistic planet, the pleasure of the world right around us and sensual satisfactions, and the aesthetic graphic arts of Libra, line and form and design, photography and architecture and things like that. But Neptune is looking for the ideal beauty, the ultimate infinite beauty. And then the second form, of course, is the Savior. Anybody who's healing, helping, teaching, preaching, making a better world is a little bit of that Savior trip. Trying to make the world closer to our ideal of how it ought to be. Doing something to bring the world to that ideal. If we're doing either of those, we're okay. If we're not, then we have the third choice, the painful one, and that's being a victim. And the victim, of course, is the person who has that same beautiful dream as the artist and the Savior, but he just isn't doing anything very effective with it. He's just wishing the world were beautiful, wishing the world were ideal, and feeling miserable because it isn't. Or he's looking for in ineffective ways, whether it's drugs or alcohol or illness or psychosis, fantasy on a backboard. I can't find my beautiful dream. The world has to give it to me. I just will retreat from the world. I don't like that ugliness. It's miserable. I don't want to face it. So that's, of course, the negative side of this, which is unfortunately too emphasized in the books, instead of the positive potential, the artist and the Savior. So if you see anybody playing victim, get them into artist or Savior. The one thing you do have to watch when you're playing Savior, that you don't go just a little too far. Because remember, if the Savior goes just a shade too far, the Savior becomes martyr, who is then victim. So you have to know when to stop being Savior. Up to a point. When you start to feel harried and victimized yourself, you've gone too far. So you do your Savior thing because you enjoy doing it, gives you a sense of fulfillment. And when you start to feel martyred, quit. The other warning signal for would-be saviors, and astrologers, many of them are would-be saviors. They really does attract the savior types. The other warning signal, which is very important for astrologers, is if you see that your help is weakening the other person instead of making them stronger. Watch out. And that is so easy for astrologers to slip into. You get those clients that call you for a good day to buy a new hat. You know, what should I do today with my life? Watch out. The people who want you to take total responsibility for their lives, every decision in their life, that's not helping. That's weakening the person. You've got to pull back. Even if you enjoy giving help, you've got to pull back when you see that happening. It's a pretty big responsibility to take on the responsibility for somebody else's life. In fact, I think in ancient China, somebody here may know, if anybody saved anybody else's life, like pulled them out of a river when they were drowning, they were responsible for them the rest of their life. If they didn't want to work, they had to support them. If astrologers really took that seriously, they might do a lot less free advice giving. And remember, the greatest thing you can do for somebody is to strengthen them, to give them insight that will help them to live life more effectively, help them to see where their problems are and do something about it, and not come to you to give them answers on how to live life day by day. My own feeling is that that kind of astrology, that good day, bad day astrology, is really destructive because it tends to put all the responsibility out there, like I can do what I like on the good days and stay in bed on the bad ones and everything will be okay. That does not work. You cannot escape your own character. In the end, it's going to get you. You've got to work in your character inside, and then the outside will take care of itself. You don't have to pay any attention to what the sky is doing now if you're in tune with yourself, if you're living at peace with yourself. So letter 12 is gorgeous, great, beautiful. Neptune is one of my absolute favorite planets. If you're doing the artist or the savior and knowing when to stop being savior. And remember again, it's a polar principle where Virgo really was the nitty-gritty work of doing that job, but by itself just a job for its own sake, just for the sake of doing a good job. And Pisces is the vision of the perfect world that we want to move towards. And look how much they need each other. If you have only Pisces, you have a dreamer who doesn't do anything except dream about the beauty. And if you have only Virgo, nose on the grindstone, the job for its own sake, for its own sake, for its own sake. But together, vision and the willingness to work towards it, the ability to work towards it. Now that takes us around, and we touched on the cardinal dilemma as a whole dilemma of the four cardinals.